Our next story here, which is White House approves nearly $3 billion drone deal with the UAE. This is something that we've covered first, I think, on the old Foreign Policy Focus podcast, but also on Conflicts of Interest, our new show. And as the Trump administration has has taken steps to sell more, drones to other countries, not just close U.S. allies, but also like Arab states. And so the State Department has formally or informally told Congress that it plans to sell 18 armed aerial drones worth approximately 2.9 billion to the UAE, according to people familiar with the matter, told Reuters. And so, this was pretty concerning, Will. I mean, I know the UAE operates Chinese-made armed drones, but them having the American versions, I think the American versions of drones are far more advanced than the Chinese ones. And if we look at the kind of actions that the UAE has taken overseas, whether it's supporting Khalifa Haftar, who's a war criminal in Libya, or the campaign against the people of Yemen, or suppressing their own population, I can't imagine anything that the UAE is going to do with these drones that's actually a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I actually had seen more reporting too that's suggesting there's like a even larger weapons package destined for the UAE that worth over $10 billion. And I think that doesn't include these drones. I think CNN had a very brief report on this where they said that they're going to be selling them precision guided munitions, air to air missiles, regular dumb bombs, and in addition to the drones that you just mentioned. They didn't really give any detail on like what munitions they would be getting or what amount of it, other than saying that it would be worth $10 billion. But yeah, we do have this report at Reuters about these 18. I think they're the Sky Guardian drones, but made by General Atomics. It's like a variant of the Reaper drone. I'm not totally sure when the drone sale is supposed to go through, because Reuters had this story first on Thursday, and they were citing anonymous sources. And I've since looked at the Defense Security Cooperation Agency. They're the ones who come out and report these sales and when the State Department certifies them. And last I checked, I didn't see anything there. So I'm not totally sure what the time frame is for the sale. As you mentioned, like the certification was only informal at this point. And so, we wouldn't see it in those records yet. But Reuters has a very good track record when it comes to this kind of reporting. Like, they were also the first to report on all those major weapons deals to Taiwan recently that we covered. And that all ended up happening. All their reporting was correct there. And so I have no reason to doubt that they're wrong about this UAE drone sale. But yeah, it is interesting. You mentioned that like the Trump administration, I think over the summer, loosened restrictions on drone exports. I wrote about this at RT. There's this like particular regulation that used to treat drones as like similar to cruise missiles. It had some extra rules and regulations on that, but they got rid of that to make it easier for American arms dealers to sell them abroad. And interestingly, that's actually the whole reason they created, like General Atomics created the Sky Guardian variant of this particular drone. It was to make foreign sales easier because they modified it specifically to better comply with like foreign European regulations. So the government and the DoD, they're always working very closely with the weapons industry. It is the military industrial complex, after all. Like they are one sort of entity. And so, yeah, they'll rescind their regulations in order for the other to make more money and make those drone sales. And yeah, we do apparently have, I think there have been two like major drone sales since that regulations was rescinded. We covered the one to Taiwan, and now we have this one here with the UAE.
Right. I just was kind of wanting to add here that I thought that this will probably tie in first to the Abraham Accords as possibly the reason for the sale is that the UAE signed this agreement to normalize relations with Israel, and it's about undermining the Palestinians. And then, of course, anytime you talk about weapon sales to the UAE, you also have to factor in the Israeli was a qualitative military edge where they had to have
Yeah.
better military equipment than all their Arab neighbors. And so there's a great article coming out this week at antiwar.com, maybe on Tuesday, by Grant F. Smith, detailing how this is a Israel lobby scam. But then, as Kelly Vallejos wrote at Responsible Statecraft, a very good article about the Abraham Accords, is it's actually crazy that this is being called a peace deal because it's ignited an arms race in the Middle East between U.S. allies, just buying up huge chunks of U.S. arms. Of course, the UAE will buy this and then Israel will buy more. And of course, what another thing that they're really buying, and one of the things that Taiwan is also buying, is the U.S. influence and believing they have a U.S. security guarantee that these weapons come along with the agreement that the U.S. military will protect them. So, a lot going on here, Will, but it's very important.
Yeah, it is ridiculous how we just legislate an arms race into law with that whole qualitative military edge thing. Because like then if we give the UAE something, then we have to follow up and balance it out. And I think they just, you may have said this, I'm not sure, but I think they just announced that like they are going through with the F-35 sale to the UAE as well. And so we'll see how that plays out with the whole QME thing.
Right? I believe the Israelis are looking for the F-22 Raptors, since the uh, Emiratis will be getting the F-35. Before we
Yeah.
wrap